I am CA Harpreet Singh Ghai, and on behalf of Aurangabad branch and Aurangabad Vikasa, I welcome you to this podcast series, What After CA. This episode will cover the field of forensic audits. Without wasting much of time, I will introduce the today's expert we have with us, that is CA Chirag Doshi, sir. He is a member of the Auditing and Assurance Standard Boards of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Also, he is a managing committee member, conveyor of accounting and auditing, and core committee member of Human Resource and Information Technology Committee of BCAS. He has more than 15 years of experience in the field of international accounting and auditing, statutory and forensic audit, gained in Canada, Germany, Dubai, Singapore, Egypt, Philippines, India, London, and many other nations. Gained in big four CA firms, large Indian CA firms, and a large corporate. So indeed, that's lots of experience you have on your part. He has specialized in IFRS and Ind AS implementation, compliance, training, and advising clients reporting and system integration in various countries for companies in various fields of media and entertainment, retails, information technology, turnkey projects, engineering, power, telecommunications, shipping, and real estate sectors. So it's indeed a pleasure to have such an experienced person today with us. So moving ahead, so first question to you. The concept of forensic audit itself is a very attractive thing. It is a very exciting thing. So how did you get inspired, or how you could describe your journey as to how you thought of going into forensic audit?
Okay, so the journey started long back when I was studying for my CA exams, and that time only one serial used to run on Sony TV, which was CID,
Right.
which I kept watching, and that was the refreshment during our studies, which was always exciting to watch. But as a chartered accountant, back in 2000. This field was not very well known. It was more called as some investigations or special assignments kind of stuff. But post 2006-7, the term forensics came into picture. And obviously with the things happening in India over the period and abroad, forensics started taking front end, and it was something different which people wanted to try. And so has me. My journey has always been, starting something before it comes into a complete market space. Like IFRS Ind AS, I started in 2008, which came in 11. So as then I thought, what is next 2 years, 3 years down the line? And there was everyday newspapers which were talking about the funds being siphoned, people running out of country. And that's where this field opened up, and chartered accountants were the first one where the banks, the SFIO, the regulators, all of them started looking towards, because money movements are best understood by chartered accountants, and hence that field, as in starting something new or learning something new, excited me. And that passion of 2000 when I was studying came back into me, and I said, let's start this field and understand what's it all about. And obviously once I went into, it's quite an exciting field. So that's how my journey towards this forensic accounting, I would say, not auditing, because accounting is the term used in forensics and not auditing. So where I landed up myself.
So gist of what you said is you took the first movers gain in this situation.
Yeah. That's what I have been doing in my entire journey from the day I qualified as chartered.
Great, sir. That's one thing the students and fresh members would definitely learn from the point you said. So in gist, you just described your journey. How would you describe this field to a fresher? Like a student who comes to you, and if they ask what is forensic accounting, as you said, how would you explain it to them?
See, basically, forensic accounting is, assessing the audit evidence. So it's something beyond audit. But obviously, when you go for a forensic accounting, you are specifically targeting particular areas. Whereas in your normal stat audits, you just go with a frame of mind that you have to give a true and fair opinion. management representation has already been made that things are correct. Here, when you go, ideally there is sometimes a whistleblower. Sometimes banks already know that money has gone and the company has gone bankrupt, or the monies might have been siphoned. So all of these things are well known. And that's where you enter into forensics. So you can't just keep vouching or ticking documents when you enter forensic. Forensic starts after all these things has already been done over the period of years.
Right.
And hence the sometimes the pressure on a starter or a fresher is little bit higher, because it requires a lot of professional skepticism. It requires experience of years together to critically examine an audit evidence. It's not only examination but a critical examination of audit evidence. So that's where the experience plays a role. Obviously there is lot of data digging, data analysis, data churning, data mining, which obviously a fresh chartered accountant can start with. There are pressures because all these assignments are type bound. Cooperations from client sides are least, as we know, because you're already doing a forensics where an allegations are already been made many times. So the supports are pretty less, and you being fresher, that confidence, that attitude towards this assignment is must before you jump into such kind of work.
So gist of this thing would be that you have, unlike a normal audit, we go for specific areas in case of a forensic audit. That is the basic aim of conducting it.
Yes.
Thanks, sir. So moving ahead, as you told, it's there are various it's time consuming, lots of data churning, data analysis. So I understand this might eat up a lot of your time in a day, I would say so. As in when you get into an audit assignment, it must be taking lots of time. So on a little personal side, how do you manage your work life and your personal life in such a field?
I think an excellent question for all the professionals, not only who are into forensics, but I would say GST today or any other areas. But it's always in your hands to manage your professional, personal, your social life. In India, we all know we are social animals. We like to attend parties, functions, create social, professional networks. So, today, yes, the base to start when I wanted to do multiple things, as I contribute to Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, I contribute to WIRC, I am on AAASD Board of Institute, today being Secretary of Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. So, this is my professional social work, where I keep connecting, networking with people. Obviously, you have to give time to that. And with this forensics, where it's not a 9 to 6 job, even an idea may click when you are in midnight of your sleep. Your thoughts are still going that I reviewed this document today. Was that lorry receipt of a lorry or of a scooter registered in an RTO registration? So all these thoughts also keep clicking when you are at different places. But yes, and on my personal life, obviously I have reduced my television time. I don't have a television at home. WhatsApp is enough today to have all the news you want on this earth before they come into the television. And you have all other OTP platforms to entertain yourself. But that I reduced. And obviously, I have given a lot of time. I started my own consultancy. The base reason was to give a lot of time to my family, which I am being able to give today. So it's a myth that if you are in forensics or you are doing this stuff, you cannot give time to your family. Yes, obviously, if you have satisfactions on your financials, which you want to earn, you can definitely have your social, professional life, and contribute back to the society, which has given you a lot, including our Chartered Accountancy Society. So that's what I believe in, and once you believe in, I think you will definitely have time to achieve all these things.
Well said, sir. Moving ahead, sir, you've been in this field now. So what would you suggest, as on your personal opinion on it, whether it's good to practice in the field or to join a job in this field, as in to do service in this or to set up your own consultancy, and the difficulties we would face in each of these situations?
So from that point of view, I think it's different. It depends on the life cycle where you stand. Let's say you are into your 0 to 3 years of experience. You are a fresher. You are into 0 to 3 years. Starting your own in this field at least is not advisable, because it requires experience. It requires, as I said, the maturity. Because the people whom you are going to be talking to are promoters, big mans many times. On the other side, the bankers, the top position of bankers who are talking to you. Sometimes the regulators who are relying on your reports. Sometimes you have to appear in the court when you have given these reports to give your statements or register your statements. There are calls from even police. So all of these things are there. And hence, the experience is the part which in forensics there is no academics. It's more towards practical exposures. And hence, I would suggest in initial phase be a part of a firm or a kind of a job or freelancing. Today, freelancing is everywhere. You can do couple of or 4 or 5 freelancing projects, which a lot of forensic experts are doing today. Get that experience, exposure before you jump into thinking of starting something of your own. Obviously, big assignments won't come down pretty easily if you've started your own. They require a lot of infrastructure. The people who give you assignment like banks requires a lot of staff with proper experience. So all of these things may not come in, but vendor forensics. So if you have some freelancing experience, some good experience, with forensics or with IRPs, vendor forensics is something which is coming up big time, which does not require, huge infrastructure or certain things, where top corporates are hiring you to do some vendor forensics or background forensics on their vendors or customers before they start giving credits or taking materials from them. So these are small assignments which will help you gather that experience, where you want to then go all out with having your own consultancy, advisory, or audit firm in terms of forensics. So initial phase is obviously I would suggest join somebody as a job, freelancer, or in whatever way you can. But you will have to work under somebody to gain that critical assessment, professional skepticism, ethics, how they all come into picture. So right. That is what I would suggest.
Right, sir. So in continuation to this, if someone wants to work in this area, what are the prerequisite skill sets, or what are the basic qualifications one needs to have to get into this area as a practicing consultant or as a judge?
Right. So I think area of expertise more depends on what kind of audits have you done. See, when we practically when we interview people, what we look into them is not only the audits they have done, but we ask them what kind of observations they could bring out during that audit. If you are reviewing we have caught frauds by reviewing bank reconciliation statements and huge frauds in areas of sale. Now, all these things have they come across a situation? Either they identified in their audit, or at least they have visualized such situations in their audit. So those are certain elements like what kind of risk they see in a particular transaction. Let's say inventory. What kind of risk can you think of? So if it's like a normal stat audit risk they talk, it's difficult for you to hire them in forensics. But where they talk about beyond things like matching the values or the cost of inventory with the market price, or weighted average with the market price, because when you have inflated your inventories, you cannot inflate the quantity. It is always the price which is inflated. So how could they identify that element? What kind of procedures they performed on pricing of inventory? These are some kind of examples we try to see whether their mind is opened up to question new things. So the most important thing in forensic is a questioning mind. Do not take anything on face value. Everything has to be questioned. Having a complete questioning mind to see whether there could be something hidden in the box. So that is all those qualities of is he aware of the market trends? Is he aware of what's happening in the competitors of those industries where he has worked into? So we don't try to throw some industry where he's not worked into, but at least those are the elements which we see, because there is no book today which can teach you forensics. Forensics is all about experience, open mind, questioning mind, and that's how you get into this field. You expand into this field and you grow into this field. Another element which we look into them is how technological savvy they are, because huge amount of data has to be churned. So are they good at data analytics? Are they aware of certain tools which are available for data analytics like IDEA and other tools? Are they aware of tools which scans, signatures, or where to look for if in case of verification of an exports? Which are the websites you would look for, where you will get external data easily from the custom websites? So all of these elements have they not experienced, but at least are aware of also, is what is required. So if you want to enter this field, start looking into different areas where third-party evidences matter much more than the evidence submitted by the management, which is already reviewed by their internal auditors, statutory auditors, bank auditors, stock auditors. So this is beyond all this. And hence that mindset where you can gather evidences from third party, which is most important, like verification of receivables. If I want to verify today, people send confirmation, but have I ever gone and checked, is that party to whom I'm sending confirmation, are they registered as the activities which they perform? Many times, we have seen consulting firms, and the bills are of iron and steel or textile or retail trading bills, but the firm is registered as consulting financial advisory. Now, if you go and look into the background of the firm, multiple firms registered at one address. Right. All of these things, this is the mindset required in forensics and not a normal. So if he can think about all these things, we immediately hire them. And I will tell you, today in our firm, we have more than 15 chartered plus company secretary who are within 0 to 3 years of experience, and they are working on desktop forensics, backend forensics for regulators and others. Okay. So it's not that we don't pick up people who are less experienced, but we want people who have open mind to learn new things, question new things, and that's where we pick up.
So what we are looking at, the prerequisite is having an open mind and techno savvy. That are the two basic things that we can say.
Yes.
Right.
A questioning mind, which is the most
the mindset matters the most. Yes. Right, sir. So what are the prerequisites? Any qualifications required in that sense? As in, do you need to qualify any exam or anything?
So there are a couple of qualifications available in the market. Like obviously globally, it is the CFE, which is Certified Fraud Examiner's degree, which you can give online from any country, and get a certification and maintain that certificate. The other is our institute course for those who have qualified, which is the FFAD as a short form they call. So in its, I think it's a 15 days on-site training, or now could be an online training, and then you have an exam which you clear and get a certificate. So it's more of a, not a course or a degree, but it's a certificate. So which is given by the institute to the members after attending all these courses. So those are the two degrees which we look at. But obviously, as I said, experience matters more, because there is no book which can teach you fraud examinations. So that definitely gets one upper hand. But obviously, if somebody is more experienced today, we are not looking at degrees to hire people in this area.
Right. So most important question, many of them will have this question: how does one get a forensic auditing assignment?
Well, a lot of people, even freshers, call me for that. And see, assignments in forensics are multiple facet. It's not only what comes into newspapers about big banks and big NBFCs. There are various small forensic, and see, this forensic term has become the talk of the town in every board meetings now. We've been getting call where now people who buy flats, or who have given for simple redevelopments of society to a builder are asking us to do a forensic on expenditures incurred by builder. So, forensic now, and this term which was somewhere small investigations is now forensic everywhere. So, forensic is not only where, 1,000 crore, 2,000 crores have been siphoned off taken from the banks and all those things. There are various small set of assignments. You can try looking at that. There are, disputes between partners, which calls for forensic between partners these days. There are vendor forensics, as I said, which are very small pieces. So even in tier 2, tier 3 cities, this is a very good element where, if you can project well to your client the value addition they get by, doing forensics on their customers where they are losing money as a bad debts later on. Why don't do that forensics beforehand on them? Are they genuine? Where are they supplying the goods? Are the parties they supplying very risky or not? So forensic is not only forensic accounting is not only where you have this, but it's at multiple facets. With enterprise risk management also growing, at various board meetings and audit committees, it's been talked big time. Now whistleblower policies, reporting to audit committees about frauds identified, small, all these things have been highlighted these days. And because a lot of independent directors on the board are now asking all these things. Now these are all small assignments which can be taken up by freshers who have entered into consultancy with some experience. Tier 2, tier 3 cities, this is the kind of elements which are growing big time, and that's where this industry is growing. It's penetrated very less right now. It's obviously billions of dollars industry globally, as we know, and so as in India, because the control systems are still weak in India in a lot of entities, SMEs, MSMEs. So this thing may take a priority very soon, where people will start doing these small areas, getting comforts on them, and that is the piece, I think, where a lot of fresh chartered or new people who want to jump into this field, there is a lot of opportunities for them over here.
Yes, sir. So if
that's where you can get the assignments.
Yes, sir. If you could throw some light as regards the transaction audit and forensic audit. In case of IBC, there's the requirement for transaction audit. Is this a similar field or it's a different field altogether?
So forensic will cover that transaction service, because there are only 4 or 5 sections under IBC. When an IRP gets appointed, he wants to know about preferential transactions. He wants to know, are there any knockoffs or direct knockoffs done or third-party knockoffs done in the company? Are the goods sold at a higher price or lower than the market price, transferred to some their own related parties at very low price, and then profit is shifted over there where there are no funds from bank or third parties? So they have only these 4 or 5 criteria to know whether something wrong happened in that, and the reports are surrounding them. When banks do a forensic, they do more of a general forensic and for a longer period. IBC requires 1 year and 2 years for related parties, 1 year for non-related parties. That's the minimum. Obviously, the professional can go beyond it if he feels like after the COC approvals. But where bank independently is doing forensic, they are asking for longer term of 5 years, 6 years, or from the day they gave the funds, because that's where the whole story starts. Yes. So that is one piece where bank requires this way. And obviously, forensic, as I said, vendors, debtors, all these small forensic disputes between partners, overspending. Sometimes the assets are not found, and suddenly you get a forensic done within the entities. This all are a small forensic piece which are different than what IBC requires. IBC requires specific, you to report on 4 or 5 standards. And then could be some general clause which you come across during your audits and your report.
Right. So this is another field where freshers can take up if they have some experience. Getting into transaction audit would be another thing that they could look at.
Yes.
So moving ahead, every auditor is required to have some kind of professional skepticism, but a forensic auditor needs it even more. So how does one, get that kind of mindset? How do they develop that?
So see, this mindset is developed in a very different way. As I said, that you need to initially have a questioning mind for anything and everything. Even if you go to a hotel and pay a bill, if you look at that, whether GST are charged properly, is he charging me that? So, many times, how is the tips directly added or not? Why do they directly add it? So these are kind of questioning minds. If anything is happening on policies, if anything is like today, I will say a simple thing. Everybody, the biggest talk of the town, cryptocurrency. Now everybody is running or rushing very, but do you have a questioning mind towards this element also? It's not something bad or good that I'm talking about, but having a questioning mind in everything which you have. I think on a lighter note, all the husbands can ask their wife, how to have these questioning minds, and you can learn a lot from them. They always have a questioning mind on you. So that's on a lighter side. But obviously, to gain this, you need to read more. Try to see what kind of forensics have already happened. There are reports published by IBA where top 100 bank frauds are being without names have been published, how it happened. This will help you to know that when you are auditing, till what level are you questioning and what actually you should be questioning.
Right.
So a mindset. Another is critical, examination of evidence, anything submitted by the, management. Now, this is something where if you have an open mind, questioning mind, you will definitely be able to check beyond. So you need to put more efforts rather than anything else. When we go for an audit, we may tick boxes with the standardized checklist. We've been given processes, what to follow that within that pressurized timeline, and attach those samples, and you are done. So this is beyond. If you want to spend some more time beyond, try doing in your audits also. You will be able to identify things very easily. It's not that something which is been hidden very smartly these days. It's very easy. Like simple things I will say, skepticism is where we are very easy and okay with data has been directly knocked off with creditors. We say that, okay, मैंने इसको बोला, इसको पैसा दे दो, which is very easy in a business parlance. But when you go to forensic and have an open mind, why are these two parties being knocked off specifically? If you go and try to see behind, many times you will find they are relatives. Many times you will find this both entities having same addresses, and this is very common we've seen in forensic. So it's just going one layer above and just questioning that why these two only parties were knocked off out of 200 vendors and 200 receivables you had. Why these 10 parties with which we have a lot of transactions are getting knocked off against each other? So that will help you to question and understand whether actually the goods moved.
Correct.
What happened. So these are all the mindsets which if you will start developing, it's just one layer above your audits, and you can do this as a part of your audit also and gain this experience, which will then help you to identify frauds. Initially, we have identified frauds when we were doing normal audits only.
Okay.
And that's where this field excited. Obviously, when I was a part of Siemens, I had worked with a team which had very high level of professionals doing forensics, and we were supporting that team. At that point in time, I was not at that very high level. And that's where we used to go to different countries and try to see whether the management is operating correctly over there for the audit committee of Siemens Germany. So, that time I had an opportunity to work on such assignments which excited me, which helped me gain some experience where I was looking at others. So, gain some experience and jump into it. And it's just one notch above what you are already doing into your normal audits. GST audit, may it be tax audit, or may it be your statutory audits, internal audits, anything. It's just one notch above. Just raise yourself, and I think you will be there identifying all these elements which will start coming in front of your eyes.
So basically, we're looking at Sucheta Dalal everywhere.
I would say Pradyuman.
Right. Sir, as you said earlier, there are practical difficulties. General, what are the, going more specific into that topic, what are the practical difficulties one faces while carrying out a forensic audit?
Practical difficulties are many because, as I said, the cooperation, the first of the most important thing you require is is
Yes.
less. But at the same time, forensic relies more on third-party documents than the documents which are present in the entity. So that is one element where if you start running behind third party more than the management, you will be more better off in your forensic. That's one. Data churning is very high. So if you are a fresher, you are not comfortable with data churnings because 5 years bank statements you have to churn and see every transaction. What was the nature of those transactions? Were they salaries? Were they statutory payments? Or paid to some real estate transactions? Or paid to some related parties? You have to segregate all of those, and they are actually in millions. And some entities we have seen having more than 50 bank accounts because of branches, because of plants are at various locations when they grew. So multiple bank, some bank accounts are only for receiving money, some are for paying salaries, some are so multiple bank accounts, and you have to review them. So data churning is pretty high. Saturation levels also come into in your team when they are churning a lot of this data. Millions of transactions, many times you have to churn to identify those critical transactions which were made a part of this exercise as a forensic. So all of this elements to look at, that is one element. Second is infrastructure is many times a problem in India. Our offices also doesn't have that good infrastructure as well as the client base. Both the areas when you visit sites, when you visit offices or your own infrastructure is not that well developed. We don't have forensic labs available everywhere. They are very less in numbers. If I want to get some invoice verified in terms of signatures, writings, emails, which I want to go through hundreds and thousands of emails in all employees' emails boxes. Now, this all tools are not easily available to new startups, which is where I have always been making request to our institute also to come up with various forensic labs which our small members in tier 2, tier 1 or in metro cities can easily use them. And this is where the tool support, if they can come, a lot of members, that main hurdle which has been faced in forensics will go off. If we have websites where we are taking subscriptions, which are where you get complete data about the entity, his entire history. Why can't it be taken by us and given free to the members to grow this practice per se? So those are the elements where I have been trying to push or recommend that. But if that happens, this main hurdle would go out. Second critical hurdle is fear. Fear factor which is being spreaded is another hurdle when you do a forensic. So there are only hurdles which come when you do a forensic assignment more, and once you cross that, you can see everything what's on the other side. But yes, people not available. Those people who were a part of those transactions are moved out of the entity. The promoters, many times you don't identify who they are. Entities where I will give you one example where I went and I asked my team, okay, these are the issues you are seeing. Let's talk to the managing director who was handling this company. Call him and let's do that interview and discussions with him. And my manager in charge, he just told me, sir, the guy who served you the tea over here, he's the managing director on paper. Now, how do you question him? What kind of documents do you bring out of it? The CFOs are drivers of those promoters. Now, promoters are nowhere in picture. You cannot question them in that way because you don't have that authority that point in time. So these are the hurdles actually you go and face in your reports. Many reports of forensics you will see are open-ended because of lack of documents or support. So that's one element. Another support is from your team. As you rightly were questioning, the skill sets which are still yet not easily available in this area. So that is another hurdle in forensics. So if somebody wants to grow in this practice, if you get your good skill sets, good technology hands, because the next future of fraud is all going to be around digital. Those frauds of moving goods and all those things are reducing. Digital frauds are increasing.
Right, sir.
So this is another area where skill sets are not there. So if you start developing your skill set in these areas, you will be, in the lead in next couple of years, and you will be in demand for sure. But yes, these are the hurdles which come is client cooperation, skill set, infrastructure, support from every party involved, stakeholders involved. All of these things are an hurdle in forensic, which definitely you can overcome over the period. But everybody, right from the regulators to institute to members, all have to come together to raise this skill set.
Right, sir. Moving ahead, kind of related to the previous question, the risks in conducting practical difficulties, as you elaborately discussed with us. What are the risks, high risks in the area of forensic audits? I mean, personal, professional, monetary, all three.
So it is a risky area, hence and hence always well paid also. So it's always where the risk is high, the returns are higher. But obviously the risks are from various angles. It depends on the who has appointed you, on whom you are doing forensic, and the amount involved in that forensic. As you pointed out, yes, when you do big assignments, the pressures are different from different people. The pressures from there are people, promoters who go and complain against you in police because they feel like harassments. There are kind of complaints raised that you asked money, we didn't give, so you are saying that we are fraudsters. So they are smart enough to raise all these things, but at the same time, you have data full of box files and servers filled with it. So you can always submit, because forensic accounting is all about reporting facts. You are not giving judgments, you are giving facts to the judge to judge whether he is a fraudster or not. So, to the court of law. So it's more about reporting the facts, as you have seen. So when you have reported things rightly, that's not a worry. But yes, this all are the tensions or pressures which are created. Obviously, no support when you visit sites, they create tensions and pressures over there. They try to tell you, if you visit a plant, our employees are not paid salaries, and they are from that background, they will hit you. And if you try to visit there and try to do a stock count over there, they will hit you before you enter the plant. There will be stones thrown on you, and all of these pressures are being built up. Obviously, I have per se not seen a political pressure being built up so far on the huge assignments of thousands of crores funding which we've done. We've not seen any professional kind of political background behind that so far in my assignments. But obviously, from promoters, as you said, financially there are offerings, your ethics, which the institute has taught in, your religion, all these things, your peace of mind, which you normally have, matters a lot. I think yoga is one thing which can definitely help you, meditation and yoga, if you're doing forensics. But yes, there are pressures, but not for junior levels. The pressure is for the guy who is signing that report or taking that responsibility. There are all kind of pressures, but not in every assignment. If the assignment is you are appointed by the promoters, as I said, for doing vendor forensics, there is no pressure. If you are appointed by an IRP, where you are reporting independently to an IRP, the promoters are already out of the company. The pressures could be still less. Where you are directly sometimes doing for banks or somebody, the pressures could be there. But I have not seen that you people breaking down due to any of the forensic pressures, or I have in my network never heard that somebody was broken down due to some pressures being put on them. Chartered accountants are strong. Our articleship itself, builds us our mindset so strong that everything of this pressure looks pretty low. I have never got any family pressure, calls or family issues, or somebody calling for family blank. Some calls, yes, but not in terms of any this thing where they put any pressures, because they know what they have done is wrong when you are going over there, and hence they don't try to put any pressure. If they are right, they will definitely not put any pressure. Yes. So I have not seen per se that kind of pressure, but obviously they try to connect you through various professionals in your network, to be more lenient, to be at least not reporting it harshly. All of those sorts are normal requests you get, but you never get any I have not got per se any bigger threat calls or something. Some minor, yes, in that profession, and it is a part and parcel of that profession.
Right. So moving ahead, general myths about this field. Would you like to, clear out certain myths that there are out in the market? Your understanding, like someone comes to you, sir, someone has said कि ऐसा है forensic audit वैसा है, and you realize you end up telling them that it is nothing of this sort. Like one of the basic myths, like you will get a call, just like one you said. Any other such myths?
So there are myths around, working timings. There are myths about should a girl enter this field as a forensic. I do get those kind of questions that, should a girl be entering forensic? Now, these are all kind of myths. I have per se not seen those kind of risk in forensics. We go to corporates, we go there and work in corporate offices. They are well secured. So that one fear myth which is there is not there. The another myth which people have, that you need some different out of the world expertise to get into this field, which is another myth. As I said, it is very simple. It's in front of your eyes. It's just that reading between the lines. So all the laws, when we read, we have to read the principles behind the law and not the line as it is written. It's the same thing. You have to read behind the invoice and not what is written on the invoice. So it's not that something out of the world skills you need. It is simple questioning mind, skepticism, which you can develop over the period, and that's what's there is another myth that if I enter the field, will I have a profession? What will be my future today? So this was all 2 years back a myth. Today everybody knows forensic. You will get a lot of work, whether you are on job or you are on consulting assignments, freelancing assignments. You are getting work. So there is work. There is not something which is out of the world or only we are aliens who are doing forensics. We are common. We are one out of you. We didn't have any degrees or specific things when we started back in 2006 and 8 doing this thing. It is experience which teaches you. So that's another myth. One myth I cleared is that family will get some calls and there are issues. There is nothing of big of that sort. We've been working with various regulators also. There is nothing of that sort. So that's another kind of a myth. And yeah, if somebody feels this field is glamorous, that's also another kind of a myth. It's not that glamorous because where you are going, काफी चीजें already उजड़ गई है. So it's like you are going into that raw house and just finding why it happened and how it happened. So it's not something where you go there and it's going to be glamorous. It's tough. So that's there. But yeah, these are all some kind of myths which we are seeing in forensic. It's nothing at that. It's not like only big firms are getting forensic. Small pieces of forensic tier 2, tier 3 cities can also be developed easily. Once people know that you are doing, they obviously their money is involved, so they want comfort, and this field is big.
Right, sir. So not giving the complete details, but could you share one of your favorite cases that you've done, if possible?
Many incidents.
Favorite ones, as in, like you were surprised, as in what was the level or thought process that person gave to do the fraud?
Two things I will say to do the fraud, as well as after the fraud was identified what they did. And so one of the very good examples I can give is one of the assignments we were doing. And when we started, as I told you about Promotas. So post this fraud happened and he got bankrupt and all. So if you are running away to countries, which had become very common trend, to running away to various countries. And I don't know, this is not a tip to anybody who wants to go. But funny cases like, people have used mindsets where, they say that our promoter went to, Africa to do some, sightseeing in jungles and all, and he's been kidnapped. Now, if you are in some country where you've run away, you can pull him back. But, countries where all these things are common and you go there, and if you give such kind of reasons, who is going to go there and catch him back? Whether he's there or not, nobody knows on this earth. But these are kind of post-funny incidents. In terms of forensics, when they do, I think I have not seen any genius minds so far. They are all done thinking that this is what the regulators don't see today. So it's a gray area. Let's try to exploit that, and they try to do like knocking off of data, which is very easy, as I said in the parlance. Sometimes we have seen, they have almost more than 200 vendors registered on one single address, which is a small, workspace, small cabin taken in some office who are giving cabins on hire. And there are more than 200 entities registered on that single address. And there is nobody sitting over there when you go. So these are some kind of mindsets they have done. Obviously, related parties they keep doing. But nothing is hidden so far as you are doing it on paper. It's not hidden. There are entities who have said that, in textile they have done frauds and say that, wo chuhe kaat gaye. So, we had to burn that entire lot of our inventory, which we had and which was huge. So, we had to have a questioning mind. Now, that's where questioning mind comes in. Now, you have not seen the rats, which happened 1 year back. You've not seen that quality. Some of the employees signs it that yes, it had happened. Now, the questioning mind is, if you have to burn this much amount of cloth which was printed, it has chemicals. You would need an environmental clearance to actually burn that cloth.
Right.
Now, if you ask for an environmental clearance, you will never get it. You will need lorries to pick up that cloth from this location to take somewhere. If you will ask this questioning mind, that is where you will be, coming over. So these are the kind of frauds they did in past. Some of the elements where you can easily, but these are all visible. It's just, as I said, one notch above. There is no genius frauds which has come across. If there are any, we've still not yet been able to catch them.
Right, sir. What, as you've already said, so the future of this field, as you say, is going to be technical and digital henceforth. Would you like to elaborate anything more on that?
So obviously, technical digital field itself is evolving. So what we are citing today is because every transaction is now automated, every transaction is going through online, and obviously, and that's an easy way if you can barge into somebody that frauds could happen. There are, initially now obviously telecoms have blocked, but there were ways where and frauds have happened where if I call you on your mobile, I can flash the number of the any person's number whom I want to flash on your mobile. So if I flash your dad's mobile number on your phone and just call you and said, okay, a guy is at home, please give him 2 lakhs. I am busy. Don't call me right now. Or like you calling your home and your number flashes on your dad's mobile, and you say I am on this online call. If somebody comes, pay 2 lakhs, and you just cut the call. And somebody after 5-10 minutes will come up to your door and ask, and your dad will give in. It's gone, vanished. But that number which flashed was your number and not the person who called his number. Now these are kind of frauds which happen. Obviously, they are blocked now by many of the operators. Earlier, it used to happen very easily through certain apps, and so obviously there is a dark web, which is much bigger, as everybody knows, than the web we use. There are free tools available over there to hack all this stuff. So that's pretty big. It is very difficult to catch many times because IPs are bounced everywhere. So all of these elements are tough, which could be the next layer of cyber frauds, which what we say is going to be the next level of frauds which we see. So that's where I said technology and digital is going to be the next trend of identifying frauds.
Right, sir. I don't think so. This question would be valid to looking at the excitement that you've shown throughout the conversation. Did you ever regret getting into this field?
No, it's not about regretment of. I have tried a lot of fields in my career. I have been with Big Four. I have been with the largest corporate Fortune 500 entity. I have been with Indian firm, big size firm as partner. Now I have started my own. So any field which I have entered, right from IFRS or forensic, I have never felt regretted because they were researched. I do research outside India, what's happening globally, what's happening. Like today, we know India is moving through that startup movements. What's happening in Silicon Valley? What are the movements? So when you look all this, you research. It's all a calculated risk. We are chartered accountants. We never risk our financials at least. And anything which I start, I have a plan what I do. Field I never regretted because the passion started when I was studying. So there was always a passion, there was always a questioning mind in audits which I had. So when I got this open field to use my questioning mind, I have never regretted per se entering this field. So yes, I still enjoy this field. We have a huge team now doing a lot of forensics on for helping the regulators do that. So we are enjoying this field. There is no doubt about it.
Great, sir. So lastly, any advice to the young students, like you yourself developed the interest when you were studying? So such young students and young members.
So my thought to or suggestions to always to them in few areas are you may join an entity which is doing good, but whenever you join an entity, you are adapting to changes, who are ready to accept what is the next future, and don't close their eyes towards that. Try to look at new things. Don't sit over what is happening in our country itself. Now globally, even if accounting standard are talking one language, corporates are talking similar language. M&A is happening all around. You should have all this knowledge being gathered. So once you start developing this knowledge, and whichever area of passion you have, it's not only about forensic, but the passion you have and you try to develop your field into it, has always been said, and many of our good movies also show that. That's how it is. But always try to think different. See, we are in an evolving world. We are in a developing nation. If you stick only to forensics, it is going to take you some years. You are starting your career. You have at least 35, 40 years ahead in your life of professional career. So always keep thinking, what is 5 years down the line? Start developing that skill set parallelly when you are working on this. So it's not leave this and start that. We are all chartered accountants. Take calculated risk. Look at your anything you jump into new areas. Look at the plan B which you have, and that will help you. But I think in this area, always think future is what I always tell people. Think a little bit differently if you want an exciting field which you don't want to regret later on. Ups and downs will always come in every field. So that's a person who want to try something. Never be afraid of trying. Try new things. Otherwise, you are doing a normal thing in life. You are not living your life. You are just living your life. So I would say just live it in the way you like. And the world is opened up for chartered accountants. The training which we get, the knowledge which we get from our institute during our practical trainings also are wonderful. I think it's much ahead of I have seen in the market if well utilized. It's well ahead. You are the only one when you go as an auditor can have any questions which you want to ask on any transaction which a client has done and why he has done and understand. And he explains you entire background, history, why he did it. And what was the reason behind taking this step by the management for entering new products or whatever. So this is the only field which helps you to know all these things. So utilize it to the optimum and see what is future. I think that is what my tips would be for the young generation. Deep dive into technology, and professional skepticism is the base behind what roles we play in the industry.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your time and guiding. I am sure that many students will definitely benefit from what you highlighted today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I think it's a pleasure. Thanks to Vikasa Aurangabad for inviting me for this podcast. Thanks to Rupali and thanks to Harpreet for asking certain straightforward questions, which I think may definitely help some people who want to. The whole idea is to help and support people who want to try something new, is what I also understood from this new initiative. And all the best to your branch for this new initiatives which you've taken up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.